What does a man who invented the future do when he runs out of tomorrow? This is the story of Thomas Edison's final chapter. It's not just a tale of a dying inventor. It's a story about legacy, about obsession, and about the one invention that even the Wizard of Menlo Park could not complete: his own immortality. We all know the legend, the man who gave us light in a bottle, the man who captured sound. He held over 1,000 patents. He seemed less like a man and more like a force of nature. But even forces of nature have to rest. Our story begins here, in the autumn of 1929. Edison is 82 years old. The world he helped create is roaring forward. Cars, radios, movies, all touched by his genius. But here, at his home, things are quiet. His body is failing him. The endless energy that once fueled 18-hour workdays is gone. The stomach problems that plagued him for years are worse. But his mind is still a furnace of ideas. Because Thomas Edison, even on his deathbed, is working on his most personal, most impossible project. He is trying to invent a way to speak to the dead. This wasn't a sudden, strange obsession. For years, Edison had been quietly fascinated by the question of what happens after we die. He was a man of science, not superstition. He didn't believe in ghosts or seances. He believed that life was a form of energy. And energy, as he proved with the light bulb, cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. So, he reasoned, the personality, the soul, the essence of a person, what he called life units, must also continue to exist. They must disperse, like particles, into the universe. And if these life units still existed, then a sensitive enough instrument should be able to detect them, amplify them, maybe even communicate with them. He called this theoretical machine the spirit phone. Can you imagine it? The man who revolutionized communication wasn't just trying to call across oceans or continents. He was trying to call across the ultimate frontier, the veil of death itself. But to understand the weight of this final invention, we have to understand the losses that shaped the man, the ghosts who were already trying to speak to him. The first great loss of his life was his wife, Mary Stilwell. She was his first love, the mother of his 3 children. She called him T.A. He was a tornado of work, often absent, consumed by his projects. And in 1884, Mary died suddenly at the age of 29. The official cause was congestion of the brain, likely a brain tumor. Edison was devastated. He was in New York when he got the telegram. He rushed home by train, but it was too late. He was now a widower with 3 young children. The man who captured sound had no recording of his wife's voice. He was left only with silence. The second ghost was his daughter, Marion. Wait, let me rephrase that. Marion was very much alive, but she represented a different kind of loss, the loss of a relationship. Marion was his eldest, his dot. They were incredibly close. He even named his first phonetic telegraphy system after her, the dot and dash of Morse code. But when Edison remarried a brilliant woman named Mina Miller and had a new family, Marion felt replaced. She grew distant. She moved to Europe. The dot was disconnected from the dash, and the third ghost was his firstborn son, Thomas Alva Edison Jr. Dash. He was a sensitive boy, living in the enormous shadow of a legend, a shadow he could never escape. He struggled. He drifted from one failed business venture to another, sometimes even trading on his famous name in shady schemes. His father was frustrated, at times even embarrassed by him. Their relationship was a complicated, painful fracture, so in that quiet house in 1929, as his body weakened, these were the voices echoing in Edison's mind. A wife gone too soon, a daughter far away, a son, a source of heartache. Was the spirit phone just a scientific curiosity? Or was it the desperate final attempt of a dying man to make amends? to say the things he never got to say, to hear a voice he longed to hear one more time. But fate had one more dramatic event in store for Edison. An event that would bring the entire world to his doorstep and force him to look back on everything he had built. It was called Light's Golden Jubilee, October 21st, 1929, the 50th anniversary of the incandescent light bulb. President Herbert Hoover, Henry Ford, and the world's greatest scientists and industrialists gathered in Dearborn, Michigan, to honor Edison. They recreated his Menlo Park laboratory, brick for brick. The world expected a triumph. And it was, on the surface. But if you look closer, you see the truth. You see an old, sick man, exhausted by the effort. A national symbol playing a part. They asked him to recreate the moment of invention, to blow into the glass bulb as he had 50 years before. He did it. But as the bulbs all over America were lit in his honor, as the crowds cheered, Thomas Edison was probably thinking about a different light, a quieter light, the faint, flickering signal of a spirit, waiting on the other side of a machine he would never finish. The celebration was too much for him. The strain of the Jubilee shattered his already failing health. He returned to New Jersey, and within weeks, he collapsed. He took to his bed, in the home he shared with his wife, Mina. The world held its breath. The great inventor was now confined to a single room, but his mind would not rest. He drifted in and out of consciousness. And in those moments between sleep and wakefulness, he spoke. He muttered about his unfinished work. He talked about rivers and rubber. And some say, he spoke to people who weren't there. What were his final thoughts? What were his final words? And what was the mysterious last breath that became a legend of its own? The answers to those questions are the key to his legacy. And that is a story for next time. This is Edistry. Join us for part 2. He had spent his life harnessing the invisible. Electricity, sound waves, the very essence of innovation. But now, in the fall of 1931, something else was slipping away, becoming invisible. His strength. Thomas Edison was home, in his house at Glenmont. The world outside was in turmoil. The Great Depression was deepening. Despair was everywhere. But inside this room, the universe had shrunk to 4 walls, a bed, and the faces of loved ones. His wife, Mina, was his anchor. She rarely left his side. His children were there too, a quiet circle of vigil. Charles, his son who had taken over the business. Theodore, the academic. And from Europe, his daughter Marion, Dot, had come home. The distance between them for now was gone. The doctors had given up. The great inventor's body was simply shutting down. The complications from diabetes and a lifetime of stomach ailments were winning. He drifted in and out of consciousness. And in those lucid moments, his mind was not on the past, but on the future. He whispered to Mina about his last great project, finding a domestic source of rubber. He was worried about America's dependence on foreign supplies. Even as he lay dying, he was problem-solving, inventing. It was the only language he truly knew. But then, the moments of clarity grew shorter. The silences grew longer. The family watched and waited. They knew the end was near. The question was, how would it come? And what would it mean? This brings us to the moment that has become legend. The story of Thomas Edison's last breath. It's a story that sounds like a myth, but it was reported by his son, Charles, in a heartfelt, detailed diary entry. This is what he said happened. It was October 18, 1931, at 3:21 in the morning. The witching hour. The time when the world is at its quietest. Edison had fallen into a coma. His breathing was shallow, a faint whisper of life. His family was gathered around his bed. And then he stirred. His eyes did not open, but he seemed to become aware. He sat up, A sudden, final surge of energy. Charles leaned in close, and Edison looked, beyond him, beyond the room. He spoke. His final words were simple. They were not about business, or patents, or light bulbs. They were about beauty. He whispered, "It is very beautiful over there." What did he see? The other side? The place his spirit phone was meant to reach? Was it the peaceful reunion he had secretly been engineering? We will never know. After he spoke, he lay back down. And he was gone. But the legend doesn't end with his words. Charles Edison then did something that would seal this story in history forever. He claimed that at the precise moment of his father's death, a test tube that was sitting on the windowsill of the room was knocked over and shattered. The story goes that the tube had been placed there by Henry Ford, Edison's great friend. Ford, who revered Edison, believed that a person's last breath contained their soul. He wanted to capture it, to preserve the essence of the great man. Whether the falling test tube was a coincidence, a vibration from someone in the room, or something else, it created a powerful symbol. The soul of the inventor, too powerful to be captured in a glass vial, had been released. It had escaped into the world. When the news broke, the world went dark, literally. At 10 p.m. Eastern Time on the day of his funeral, October 21st, a symbolic gesture was proposed across America. People were asked to turn off their electric lights for 1 minute. And they did. From New York to Chicago, entire cities dimmed their lights. Streets went dark. Homes went dark. Even the Statue of Liberty's torch was extinguished. For 1 minute, America voluntarily returned to the darkness that Edison had spent his life fighting. It was perhaps the greatest tribute imaginable. A silent, nationwide moment of gratitude. A recognition that the man was gone, but his work illuminated every corner of their lives. But as the lights came back on, a question flickered in the minds of those who knew him best. What now? What happens to everything he built? The factories, the companies, the thousands of patents? The truth was, the king was dead. And his kingdom was vast, complicated, and vulnerable. The depression was raging. New competitors were rising. The very nature of technology was changing. The man who held it all together was gone. And the battle for his legacy was about to begin. He left a will, of course, but a piece of paper cannot capture a vision. It cannot command innovation. It cannot stop rivals from circling. The most valuable thing Edison left behind wasn't a company or a patent. It was his name, Edison, a synonym for genius itself. And that name was about to be fought over in boardrooms, in newspapers, and in the hearts of the American people. Could his empire survive without its emperor? Or would the light he created slowly begin to fade? The final part of our story, the battle for the future of Edison's name, is next. This is Edistry. The conclusion awaits in Part 3. The glass was broken. The breath was gone. And in the silence that followed, a vacuum formed. Nature abhors a vacuum. And so does the world of business. Thomas Edison was gone. The nation had mourned. The lights had flickered back on. But now, in the cold light of day, a daunting question remained. What happens to an empire when the emperor dies? The year is 1931. The Great Depression is tightening its grip. And the company Edison built, Edison Industries, is adrift. The genius at its center is gone. The visionary drive is gone. All that's left is a massive, vulnerable machine. The battle for Edison's legacy did not start with a shout. It started with a whisper in a boardroom. A whisper about survival, about consolidation, about adapting to a new, harsher world. The problem was simple: competition. A company called General Electric, which Edison had helped found but was no longer part of, was a giant. It was sleek, powerful, and focused. Then there was Westinghouse, another titan. Edison's own company was struggling to keep up. And so, the unthinkable began to happen. The companies bearing his name started to merge. They were absorbed. To survive, they had to become something new. Something less personal, less Edison. The world was changing too. The phonograph, his darling invention that captured sound, was being challenged by the radio. The direct current power systems he fiercely defended were losing the war to Nikola Tesla's alternating current. It seemed for a time that Edison's legacy might be reduced to a single, simple icon: the light bulb. A brilliant creation, yes, but just one of 1,000. Was this it? Was the great inventor destined to become a logo? A name on a product? But a legacy is a stubborn thing. It doesn't live in boardrooms or balance sheets. It lives in the mind. It lives in the spirit of what comes next. Because Thomas Edison's true invention wasn't just the phonograph or the light bulb. His most powerful invention was the very idea of the modern research and development lab. He created Menlo Park, the invention factory, a place where people worked as a team, systematically solving problems. That model, that system, is the blueprint for every tech startup in Silicon Valley, for every pharmaceutical lab searching for a cure, for every company that tries to invent the future. He didn't just give us things, he gave us a method, a way of thinking. The belief that any problem, no matter how difficult, could be solved through persistence and experimentation. That spirit is his true, unbreakable legacy. It is the light that never fades. It's in the device you're watching this on right now. It's in the sound coming through your speakers. It's in the relentless human drive to make things better. And what of the man? What of the spirit phone? The final, impossible invention. In a way, he succeeded. Not with wires and vacuum tubes, but with his story. Every time we listen to a recording, we are hearing a voice from the past. We are stopping time, just as he dreamed. Every time we flip a switch and push back the darkness, we are touching his vision. He built his own spirit phone, and its components are all around us. In every illuminated street, every recorded song, every moment of human curiosity. We are all operators on that line, connected to his legacy. Thomas Edison's last days were not about an ending. They were about a transition. The final brilliant flash of a mind that taught us how to see in the dark. He proved that a single idea could be more powerful than the current that fuels it. That a legacy is not something you leave behind. It's a light you pass on. And that light is forever. And so, we reach the end of our story. But as we've learned, an ending for a man like Thomas Edison was really just a new beginning. His final chapter closed, but the light of his work? That was only just starting its journey across the world he helped to shape. The battle for his legacy, and its incredible conclusion, is now.